When I was a little girl, my parents used to leave me and my older sister alone at home sometimes. It wasn't a big deal. Our neighborhood was super safe and quiet, and my sister was old enough to take care of me. But one night, when I was about 6 or 7 years old, things got really scary. My parents had gone out for a late dinner, and my sister and I were just hanging out, watching TV and eating snacks. It was a typical night until we heard someone trying to open our front door. At first, we thought it was just our parents coming home early. But then, the banging and jiggling of the doorknob got more and more aggressive. We were both frozen with fear, not knowing what to do. Then, the doorbell started ringing over and over again, and we knew something was seriously wrong. My sister grabbed my hand and we ran to the back of the house trying to hide. We could hear the person still trying to get in, and we were both shaking and crying. After what felt like forever, the noises stopped. We were too scared to even move, so we just stayed there until our parents finally came home. We were so relieved to see them, but they were just as freaked out as we were. They called the police right away, but they didn't think it was necessary to involve them. They thought it was probably just some kids playing a prank. But my mom was still worried, so she locked all the doors and windows and we all went to bed. The next night, the same thing happened again. This time, the person was even more aggressive, pounding on the door and trying to force it open. My sister and I were terrified, and we called our parents right away. They rushed home and called the police again. But by the time they got there, the person was gone. We thought it was over, but then it happened a third time. This time, it was in the middle of the night, around 3 a.m. The person was pounding on the door and ringing the doorbell like crazy. My mom called the police again, and they finally arrived while the person was still there. But as soon as they got out of their car, the person ran away and disappeared into the darkness. After that night, we never had any more incidents, but the fear and uncertainty lingered. We never found out who was trying to get into our house or why. Maybe it was just some bored kids, or maybe it was something more sinister. We'll never know for sure. Now, as a teenager, I still think about that night and how it affected me. It's a part of my childhood that I'll never forget, and it's something that has shaped my fears and anxieties to this day. I know it may seem silly to some people, but to me, that experience was very real and very scary. "5 years ago, a disturbing incident unfolded at my isolated house. It was just like any other morning. I woke up to the sound of birds chirping and the smell of freshly brewed coffee. I had been living in this secluded house for years now, enjoying the peace and quiet that came with it. As I sat down with my cup of coffee, I heard the unexpected sound of my doorbell. I wasn't used to visitors, so I was hesitant to answer it. But the bell kept ringing, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. I looked out the window. I saw a man standing at my doorstep. He seemed harmless enough, just a door-to-door salesman trying to make a living. I decided to open the door and politely decline his offer. But as soon as I opened the door, my world unraveled. 3 other men emerged from behind the salesman, overpowering me and barging into my home. Before I could even react, they had me pinned to the ground. They told me if I got enough valuables, I won't get hurt. I couldn't believe what was happening. It all felt like a bad dream. They led me down the hallway, their grip on me tightening with every step. My heart was racing, and adrenaline surged through my body, prompting a risky escape attempt. I knew I had to do something before it was too late. Seizing an opportune moment near the bathroom, I broke free from their grasp and ran towards it, quickly locking the door behind me. I could hear them banging on the door, trying to break it down, but I wasn't going to give up without a fight. I searched frantically for something to use as a weapon and found a towel rack. Holding it tightly, I braced myself for their next attack. But to my surprise, they suddenly stopped, and I heard them whispering to each other. It was my chance to escape. I quickly opened the bathroom window and climbed out, ignoring the cuts and bruises I got from the broken glass. I didn't care. I just wanted to get as far away from those men as possible. I could hear them shouting and running after me, but I didn't dare look back. I just kept running towards my neighbor's house, hoping they would be home. Thankfully, my neighbor Margaret was home, and she let me in without hesitation. I was shaking and out of breath as I explained the situation to her. She offered me shelter while I called the police. By the time they arrived, the perpetrators was gone. I couldn't believe it. They had just disappeared into thin air. Returning to my home with the police, I was met with a scene of chaos. The intruders had ransacked my house, leaving behind a trail of destruction. Furniture was overturned, valuables were stolen, and there was even graffiti on the walls. It was a nightmare come true. But despite the material losses, the paramount relief came from the fact that I had emerged physically unharmed. The police investigated the incident, but the perpetrators were never caught. It was a terrifying experience that left me traumatized. I couldn't believe that something like this could happen in my quiet and secluded neighborhood. It was a harsh wake-up call to the unpredictability of life. I had just graduated from college and moved back in with my parents. It was a typical evening. My parents had gone out for a date night, and I was left alone in the house. I decided to take advantage of the quiet and catch up on some Netflix in my room. I grabbed some food and went downstairs to catch up on some series. But then, I suddenly heard a loud crash, followed by the sound of shattering glass. My heart started racing as I realized that someone had broken into our house. I immediately grabbed my phone and discreetly called the police, trying not to make any noise that would give away my location. I could hear the intruders moving around upstairs, their heavy footsteps echoing through the house. I knew I had to find a safe place to hide until the police arrived. I quickly made my way to the closet in my room and shut the door behind me, trying to control my breathing and not make a sound. My mind was racing, trying to come up with a plan in case the intruders found me. I felt completely helpless and vulnerable, trapped in my own home. The minutes felt like hours as I waited anxiously in the closet. I could hear the intruders rummaging through our belongings, breaking things and making a mess. I could also hear them talking to each other, their voices low and menacing. I couldn't make out what they were saying, but it sent chills down my spine. Suddenly, I heard the sound of footsteps coming down the stairs, getting closer and closer to my room. I held my breath, praying that they wouldn't open the closet door. But to my relief, I heard them walk past my room and make their way to the basement. I let out a sigh of relief, but my heart was still pounding. I knew I had to stay in the closet until the police arrived, even though every fiber of my being wanted to run out of the house and never look back. After what felt like an eternity, I heard the sound of sirens outside. I cautiously opened the closet door and peeked out, making sure it was safe before stepping out. I could see flashing lights through the windows and the sound of police officers shouting commands. I slowly made my way downstairs, my legs feeling like jelly. As I reached the bottom of the stairs, I saw the police officers apprehending the intruders. They were two men, both of them wearing masks and carrying bags filled with our belongings. My heart sank as I saw them being handcuffed and led out of the house. The police officers took my statement and explained that the intruders had broken in through an upstairs window. They had been keeping an eye on the house for a while and took advantage of the fact that my parents were out for the night. They had stolen valuable items from our home, but thankfully, no one was hurt. As the adrenaline wore off, I felt a wave of emotions hit me. I was scared, angry, and grateful all at the same time. I couldn't believe that this had happened to me, but I was also thankful that the police had arrived in time and that I was unharmed. My parents arrived home shortly after and were shocked to find the police cars outside. They were relieved to see me safe and sound, but also devastated that our home had been violated. We spent the rest of the night cleaning up the mess left behind by the intruders and trying to make sense of what had happened.